in Jeremiah 16, we continue with God giving his disclosure of what he's going to do. It's interesting how I was kind of reading ahead, and you see in 21 where many of this comes to pass, where it says that Jeremiah from the Lord, when King Zedekiah sent him unto Pashur, the son of Melchiah, and this is one of the priests. I don't know if it's the high priest, but Pashur had him smitten, whether he smote him or whether he had him smitten. I thought it was interesting that in 20, and I'm leapfrogging a little ahead, Pashur, the son of Immer the priest, who was also chief governor of the house of the Lord, heard that Jeremiah prophesied, and Pashur smote Jeremiah the prophet and put him in stocks that were in the high gate of Benjamin, which was by the house of the Lord. And it's interesting how the prophet was beaten and put in stocks, put in chains, near the house of the Lord. How ironic that these people thought that they're doing God's work and you're not on our side. You're telling us that God is not going to back our play. Jumping a little bit ahead, that these people actually think that God is on their side, because they're only looking at the promises of God, not their responsibilities within the promises of God. Now, we Christians need to be careful, because though we have no part of our salvation, we do play a large role in our sanctification and how we glorify him. Salvation is for free, but sanctification, that's our responsibility. Jumping back to 16, we have where he says, and the word of God came unto me, saying, not to take a wife in this place. He tells Jeremiah not to take a wife concerning the sons and the daughters that are in this place, because he says they shall die grievous deaths. He allows a way out, just like I said, as the wrath is coming in. It's not like these people didn't have a way out. Believe God and go into the Babylonians. He even gets into that later on when I'm talking in 21. I'll give you a little bit away here, where he says, and unto the people say, thus saith the Lord, behold, I set before you the way of life and a way of death. He that abideth in the city shall die, but those that go and to the Chaldeans that besiege you shall live, and his life shall be upon him for prey. I'm interesting with that. We're going to see that term a lot. I give you your life as prey. Your life is something that you can chase down, that you can have an effect upon. When we are saved by God, he gives us our life as prey. We can put it upon ourselves, or we can glorify God with it. Salvation is free, but what we do with our lives, it's ours as prey. Do we want to chase it down, build something of it, see what he wants to do with it, or we just let everything go? Again, back to 16, he tells them that those who stay are going to face grievous deaths. They shall not be lamented. They shall be consumed by the sword and by famine. Thus saith the Lord, enter not into the house of mourning. You are not to mourn for these people. I can move a little bit faster in 16, 17, and 18. It's very much like the gospel, and when you talk about it, you find yourself repeating yourself again and again. People who want to get saved by their own works, and you tell them about vicarious sacrifice. Well, I want to do this. Vicarious sacrifice. I have done this. Vicarious sacrifice. Well, here, they're thinking, well, we'll be okay. And he goes, no, I'm against the city. We'll be all right. No, I'm against the city. We're going to live and drink and have children. No, I am against the city. In 16, 17, and 18, we're getting close to Zedekiah. Remember, these are the puppet kings. Later on, we had Jehoiakim, we had Jehoiakim, we had Zedekiah, and then we had nobody. And so, and they haven't had a king since. They did have a king, and they killed him, and he's going to come back and be king. There will never be a king. The Antichrist may try to be king. I don't know how that might work. He might try to be the king of Jerusalem. He certainly wants to be God and sit in the holy place. Not to worship God, but to sit on the Holy of Holies, to sit on the Ark of the Covenant, to sit on the mercy seat, behind the veil. He doesn't want to worship God. He wants to be God. But see, we have, enter not into the house of mourning. You're not to mourn or lament. Both the great and the small shall die in this land. Interesting how the great and small, you can stay in the land, or you can come around, obey the Lord. He's allowed a way out. That way is believing him and going to the Chaldeans. Also, what's really horrible here is that he's allowing other enemies. Remember, we had Moab, we have Ammon, we have the Edomites, and we have some of the Philistines. We have other people who are angry, mad, or just want to go, lay waste. They're like hyenas. Once the lion goes in and takes, they want to be a hyena and run in and just scavenge the bones. And that's what's going to happen. What he says when I saw back here, and where he says, I have given the dearly beloved of my soul into the hands of her enemies. Believe me, there's more than one enemy here. The biggest enemy is God himself. Neither shall man tear themselves for them in mourning to comfort for the dead, neither shall they give cups of consolation. Thou shalt not go to the house of feastings to sit with them that eat and drink. Those that are mourning over this, or those that are feasting till they die. Behold, I will cause to cease out of this place in your days the voice of mirth and the voice of gladness, the voice of the bridegroom and the voice of the bride. We see that happening here. And it comes to pass that you'll show the people all these words. And they're going to say, wherefore hath the Lord pronounced this evil against us? Why would he do this? We're doing everything right. We have high priest. We're following along. We're keeping Sabbath when it's convenient for us. We're doing the Day of Atonement. We're doing all these things. But he goes, because your fathers forsake me and walked other gods and worshipped other gods. I get ahead of myself, just like I normally do. Worshipped other gods and forsook me, and you have done worse than your fathers. You walk after every imagination of your heart. Remember, he said that seems like there was a God for every city. Therefore, I will cast you out of the land. Behold, the day comes when it will no more be said, the Lord liveth, that brought up the children of Israel, but the Lord liveth, that brought you out of the northern land. They did have this, the Lord lives, and he brought us out of Egypt. Now they're going to say, the Lord lives, he's going to bring us out of the north. But the remnant is going to go up to the north, and the Lord's going to bring them back. And the good thing is, sometimes reading these prophets, it's good that we went ahead and finished the entire history. Because we see that happen with Zerubbabel. And with Yeshua, which is Joshua, Yeshua. We saw them come back. So understanding the future also helps with this. And so, but you've done worse with your fathers, and I'm going to cast you out of the land. And you're not going to say, the Lord liveth that brought us out of Egypt, but the Lord liveth that brought us out of the north. Behold, I will send many fishers, and they shall fish them, and I will send many hunters unto the mountains, and my ways upon all their ways. I am going to go and see, and I'm going to send people after. He's going to go after those that are hiding in the hills and hiding in the woods. And here is, O Lord, my strength and my fortress and my refuge in the day of affliction. The Gentiles shall come unto thee from the ends of the earth and say, surely our fathers have inherited lies and vanities. It's interesting how the people will give glory to Yahweh, or they will attribute this to Yahweh, to the people's sin against Yahweh. Interesting how they're not blaming Yahweh, the nations. You never get a sense that they're going, wow, what a mean God. There are several places we've covered where they hiss at Jerusalem and say, why did this happen? And their answer will be, because these people forsook their God. No other nation ever forsook their God. They kept their gods to the end. Now, some of the people may have come to Yahweh, but as a nation, they didn't forsake their God. So they understood this. Shall a man make gods unto himself that are not gods? Behold, I will this once cause them to know. I will cause them to know mine hand and my might. The sin of Judah is written with a pen of iron. You've written this. It goes down deep with a point of a diamond. While the children remember their altars and their groves, O my mountain and my fields, I will give their substance and all their treasures and all their high places. They will discontinue from my inheritance, which I gave you. Everything you have, I gave it to you, and now it's going to get all taken away. Thus saith the Lord, cursed be the man that trusts in man, and maketh flesh his arm, and whose whole heart departs from the Lord. That one even goes for us today, when we rely on flesh and not rely on the Lord. Blessed is the man that trusts in the Lord, and whose hope the Lord is. Again, we have this, blessed is the man. It's not just blessed is the Jew, or blessed is the Israelite. To men at that time who believed in Yahweh, blessed were them. Today, with those of us who believe in Yeshua, which is Yahweh, blessed are us. So this one does go for us. I know sometimes I've pointed out where we pull many of these out of context, but here, this one in context fits perfectly, hand in glove. And this is where we also get one that fits hand in glove for all men. He says, for he shall be like a tree planted by the waters, and they'll spread out his roots by the river, and shall not see when the heat comes, nor the leaf, but the leaf will stay green. Says here that the heart is deceitful above all, and desperately wicked. Who can know it? Again, all three of these fit perfectly. I'm not going to honk about those. They fit perfectly like a glove. I, the Lord, search the heart. I try the reins. He doesn't just look at your actions. Your actions come from where your heart is. And so in your heart, you're going to do these things, and then you bring them up, and then they become actions. You know, the anger, the frustration, the lust, all of that's in your heart. And I shouldn't point to here. I should point to here. This is where lust is. This is where anger, depression. This is your heart, the center of everything. Your passions, your emotions, your feelings, and your choices are all up here. So I need to stop touching here. This is the heart. This is the center. I know the reins. As a partridge sits on his eggs and hatches them not, so he that getteth riches, and not by right, he shall leave them in those days. So just like a partridge that has eggs and leaves them, so you'll be that gets dishonest gain. You're going to leave that behind. O Lord, the hope of Israel, all that forsake thee shall be ashamed, and they that depart from thee shall be written in the earth, because they have forsaken the Lord. Heal me, O Lord, and I will be healed. Save me, and I will be saved, for thou art my praise. Once again, several of these fall really good. As for me, I have not hastened from being a pastor to follow thee. This is what Jeremiah is saying. I've tried to bring things in. I've tried to bring them in. I've tried to be a shepherd, bringing in the sheep, but they will not. Imagine having stubborn sheep. You know the difference between sheep and goats. Sheep will obey you. Goats just do their own thing. They're very hard to control. As for me, I haven't hastened from being a pastor, neither have I desired the woeful day. Thou knowest that which came out from my lips was right before thee. Be not a terror unto me, be thou my hope. The Lord will be their terror, or he will be their hope. And today we see that. Christ will be your terror if you stand before him with your sins in your face, or Christ will be your hope. Let them be confounded that persecute me, and let not me be confounded. Let them be confounded. Right there, confounded means to have your plan messed up. Mess up their plan. They're planning to do evil to me. Mess up their plan. But work with my plans. Work with how I'm following you. And let me not be dismayed when comes the day of evil and destroys them with double destruction. The Lord said to me, go and stand at the gate of the children. That's where you proclaim things. And say, hear the word of the Lord, all you kings of Judah, and all Judah and the inhabitants thereof. Thus saith the Lord, take heed of yourselves, and bear no burden on the Sabbath day. Neither carry a burden out of your houses on the Sabbath day. Neither do any work, but you obeyed not. Neither inclined your ear, but you made your neck stiff. And it shall come to pass, if you will diligently hearken unto me, to bring no burden on the gate. He's using Sabbath. Many of these commandments are tests. They're tests to see if you will obey. Do you have it in your heart to obey God? Many of the 10 Commandments are not just morality. It's wrong to steal. It's wrong to kill. It's wrong to do adultery. And yet they're also the litmus test of if he says something like, don't work on Sabbath. Excuse me. Will you work on Sabbath? And if you so, you're showing that you're breaking the law. Now, I'm not Sabbatarian. Again, in Christ, he is my Sabbath. He is also my 10 Commandments. I don't keep the 10 Commandments now like the Jews did. I honor them unto the Lord. The only reason I don't kill is because it dishonors the Lord. And it's illegal. But it's not, I'm not going to go to hell, but I'm not going to do it. This gets very confusing for Christians. Murder is in your head before it's in your hand. We're talking, self-defense comes also. But to go out and have hate towards your enemies so much that you go plan anger towards them, plan violence, and then live that out. That's what it's talking about. So what we have to realize is that he's using Sabbath as a test. And they failed. And of course, we know also they failed at the time of Nehemiah. He came back and found them breaking the Sabbath. This just goes to show where God's law is in their hearts. And so, if you diligently hearken unto me, Sabbath day is just one of them. Then you'll sit at the gates as kings and princes, sitting on the throne of David, riding in chariots on horses, they and their princes of kings of Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and the city shall remain forever. This didn't have to happen. The Babylonian captivity did not have to happen. It wasn't just a set piece of history that, well, they're just going to have to ride it through like World War II or something. No, he didn't have to bring them up. He didn't have to bring them in. All they had to do was obey, and everything would be fine. But they would not. And we could have had a different Bible to where they obeyed up to the time of Christ and brought him in as king. And I don't know, maybe we would have been in a millennial reign already or something. Maybe you and I would have been born inside of a millennial reign, inside of a place of despotism, a day of dispersing, a day of sorrow, a day of lack, So we see that that maybe, possibly, time was pushed off because of sin. Because he says, yeah, if you did this, the city would remain forever. Now we know at the end of the days, the city will remain forever. And they shall come into the cities of Judah and the places of Jerusalem and Benjamin and from the mountains, and they give offerings. But if you will not hearken unto me to hallow the Sabbath day, nor to bear a burden upon entering into the gate of Jerusalem, I will kindle a fire in this palace, and I will devour the gates of Jerusalem. So which history happened? The history where they obey and they go on, and then Christ becomes king, and we just move on, and you and I were born inside of a millennial reign. What a wonderful existence. Or which one happened? They disobeyed. They went down into the despotism. They went down for 70 years. They came up and played the game. Check a box. Checked all the boxes correctly. But when Messiah got here, their king, they didn't recognize him or didn't want to, and killed him. Now you're saying, well, in the first one, there is no blood shed. I don't know how the first line would have walked out. It's almost like God knew which choice they would do and set up from the foundation of the world, knowing what they're going to choose, not making them choose it. That's the difference between my view and those of Calvinists. I think foreknowledge does not have to be for destining. I'm going to destine you to reject me. No, I'm just going to know. I mean, right now, if you went 24 hours in the future and wrote down everything I did today, and then went up 24 hours and back, you could watch me make all of my decisions. But did you choose or did I choose? We get very confounded on this. I'm not going to go too much into it. But I will say, when you look at 17, you'll say that had they obeyed, it didn't have to be that way. But they disobeyed, and it did. And that's the sadness of 16 and 17. But you would not hearken.